beautiful people. Welcome back to Delete Everything Podcast. This is a bonus episode, and so I'm going to do a quick intro because this bonus thing is a new thing we're going to start doing. Basically, every month, we're going to take a subject from one of our recent episodes, something or someone super interesting that we can't get into like in that particular episode, but who kind of deserves their own mini episode. So the second or third Thursday of every month, we're going to have a short bonus for you guys. We're calling them monthly minis. I don't have time to get into all the normal intro stuff, but you guys know the drill, hopefully. Go on to whatever. You guys should know the drill because I feel like listening to Uncontacted Tribes 1 and 2 are sort of a prerequisite for this episode. Not necessarily, but especially Uncontacted 1 would be like the one to listen to first because that's where we drop all the sort of initial info for this guy. So yeah, like I said, you guys know the drill. Go on to whatever streaming app you're listening to. Give us a review, a rating if you like us. If you're on Spotify, leave us a comment on the episode. Follow us on Instagram at Delete Everything Podcast to see photos corresponding to this or any other episode. We're working on YouTube stuff beyond just the audio episodes and the limited video we have. And if you really love the show and you want more episodes, we've got 30-something, almost 40 bonus episodes on Patreon. And you will find that at patreon.com/Delete Everything Podcast. So,
what's the subject of our short episode today?
Today we are doing Jair Candor, the gentleman who found the Kawahiva tribe in the Amazon rainforest from Uncontacted Tribes Part 1.
Okay, so we're going to get a little bit more of his backstory, a little information about him.
Yes.
You might call it, we're going to call it the Jair Candor.
Stupid. There's also something that was dropped in at the end of Uncontacted Tribes 2 that I didn't realize also corresponded to this guy, and we're going to get into that in just a second. So, like I said, we're talking about Jair Candor, and yeah, he definitely merits an extra look. If you are one of the people who hopefully listened to Uncontacted Tribes Part 1, you may recall Jair Candor. He was the Amazon conservationist who not only discovered the Kawahiva tribe, but also attempted to be the first person to contact them for their protection. He was the first person to get video footage of them, some of the only video footage that we actually even have of the tribe. And up until 6 months ago, when he retired, he would lead an expedition every 2 years to track the tribe. And he would keep his distance, but just gauge how they were doing. I found out more about why that's a thing. They have to renew the protection licensing with the Brazilian government every 2 years.
Oh, that is interesting.
That's why they do an expedition every 2 years, is to just go and see, like, are there more people? Are there fewer people?
Are they all dead? Because then we can drop the protection.
Seriously, like, do they look healthy? Are they still hunting and gathering and moving around in the jungle? Or are they more stationary and maybe starting to plant crops? Things like that.
You said Jair Candor deserved another look. Would you say that he's a good-looking man?
He's an okay-looking dude for his age, yeah.
Would you call him Jair Candorable?
Is this what you're going to do this whole
episode? I'm going to do a few of these, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm okay with it. He is Jair Candorable. You know, and it's not just the looks thing. I watched a documentary with this guy, and he's just a very stoic guy.
Uh-huh.
And just knowing now, like after researching his life, what a fucking cool guy, man. What a cool motherfucker. Anyway, so I'm glad that we picked this guy for the bonus episode because, like I said, he definitely deserves an extra look. This is a guy who totally changed his mindset on what the jungle is and what Indigenous tribes contribute and contribute. Sure.
Contribute. I think they both work.
Yeah, whatever.
You know?
Yeah, we're fine.
What the fuck you were talking about?
Yeah, and he just it's just the importance of this region. He did like a full 180 from what his mindset was as a younger man. And once he changed his mind, he dedicated his entire fucking life to putting in it wasn't just lip service. Like, he put the fucking work in. And this dude's so much more badass than we realized in the first part of Uncontacted Tribes. So
he had a real Jair can-do attitude.
Yep.
Continue.
So Candor was born around 1960. I didn't track down the exact birth date because it's not that important to the story. He's 65 now, so 1960-ish. So when he's 6 years old, his family moves to the Amazon. In the 1960s, Brazil had a military dictatorship, and so they incentivized people to move to the parts of Brazil where there's rainforest and just like in an attempt to develop the area and, just sort of further industrialize Brazil.
Going out there, he was a bit of a Jair Candor the Explorer. I'm going to give it a break for a minute.
I'm going to be so happy when these are done.
Sorry. No, they're not done ever, but I'll give it some time.
Fucking idiot. So they created plots of land and offered it to anyone willing to colonize what they called at the time the Green Hell.
Green Hell.
That's what they called the rainforest.
I've heard that. Well, the fucking Eli Roth used the Green Inferno as a movie. So yeah, Green Hell.
The Green Hell. Yeah. So.
Wait, is it in Spanish? Like they call it that in Spanish?
Well, no, they would have called it that in Portuguese.
What would that be in Portuguese?
Inferno Verde.
Inferno Verde.
Yeah.
That's fucking a good hot sauce.
That would be a good hot sauce. The Green Hell. So the sentiment at this time that was very much promoted by the regime was that native tribes were primitive animals and they needed to be forced off the land or just fucking killed.
Never heard anything like that in my life.
No shit, right? Weird. So yeah, and if you didn't, if you didn't kill them or displace them, then they would stifle the growth of Brazil. And so it was just a thing in the 60s. If you saw indigenous tribesmen, you just shot them. You didn't get arrested because as far as the government was concerned, they were just animals. They were just beasts. They were just wild beasts in the jungle. It was fucking crazy, right?
That fucking blows, dude. Like, that sucks so bad.
I mean, it's history's full of this bullshit.
You're always talking about Brazil. Sounds like Brazil's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the same fucking nightmarish bullshit that every other country does.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is the attitude that Jair Candor grew up with. Like, by his own admission. Like, that was how it was when he was growing up. So by the time he's around 9, his mother dies and the family separates. I'm not sure how or why. I don't know, like, if his father was in the picture or if he had already passed away or what, but his siblings, he had younger siblings, younger siblings, I guess. They ended up being adopted, but because Jair Candor was 9 already, he was, quote, too old to be adopted.
Damn.
So he just gets left behind. His brothers and sisters get fucking adopted out. His fucking family's, his mom's dead. I don't know about the dad. But he's just 9 years old by himself on the edge of the fucking Amazon rainforest where his family had moved 3 years before to like sort of build some shit on the the instructions of this fucking shitty regime that was running Brazil.
Just like, run free. Off you go.
Seriously. So he's 9 years old. He's got to fend for himself. He ends up going to live with a group of rubber tappers, like guys who go and tap rubber trees for the latex to make rubber. And he literally started working a fucking job at 9 years old to like make ends meet at 9. It's fucking insane.
That is fucking wild.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much you know about rubber tapping, especially like back then. It was
there's got to be a fucking joke in there somewhere. I'm trying. I don't know.
It was very
rubber
environmentally.
Tapper.
The not jokey part is environmentally it was fucking terrible for the environment. Like it's just clear cutting fucking forests.
Yeah, because you can't really you can't really tap a rubber tree because it's goopy.
Well, there are ways that don't involve tapping the trees out entirely and immediately moving on. But like at the time, that's what they would do. They would just tap them out completely and then fucking chop the motherfucker down and keep going.
There you go.
So Jair's doing this. This is his part of his fucking life. And he eventually stops going to school and he's just working. Whether he knew it consciously or not, he's learning how to survive in the Amazon because these guys have to go kind of deep into the Amazon, keep finding rubber trees and tapping rubber trees, right? So
he's just out there rubbing it out.
Yeah. Tapping that tree. So as time passes, his attitude starts to change a little bit. Unlike most of the people living on the edge of this rainforest who see it as this just unending, boundless pool of resources. And, they see the destruction and exploitation of all this shit being the only thing keeping them out of poverty, which is legitimate. That is really what, you're think about even right now, those towns that exist, those little fucking, shithole outposts that exist right on the edge of the rainforest are kind of like, they're not very modern. They're not very, you know what I mean? They're just kind of still very Wild West.
It's like subsistence living.
Yeah, go back fucking 60 years, man. That shit was just, if you didn't do these things and honestly just exploit the forest right there, then you were gonna fucking die poor.
Yeah.
No house, nothing.
Be willing to bet that there's a huge number of those little outpost towns that are still doing the exact same thing, living the exact same way that they did 60, 70 years ago. Yeah.
That's why illegal logging and mining and fishing and all these illegal ranching, all these illegal things that still happen on this sort of edge and just inside the rainforest. Yeah. That's why they still exist.
As much of the rainforest has been taken out, there's still plenty of room for little towns where you fucking go gambling, things go wrong, they'll machete you. You know, there's a lot of Wild West still like available on those frontiers.
I mean, I can't speak to that per se.
I hope so, because we're supposed to go out to Brazil, and I really want to be in a dangerous situation like that. That sounds great.
Do you really?
I mean, sure, I got a machete too.
Do you want to know something? I'm going to try and reach out to Jair Candor whenever we go out there.
That would be fucking tight.
I would.
You want to get a Jair Candor discussion? You thank him for his Jair Candor.
Producer Drew's shaking his head over there by the computer. As long as I don't get a Jair Candida infection.
What?
Candida, it's a fungal infection, right? Drew?
No, that joke sucked.
He had to take off his producer hat and put on his nurse hat.
That joke sucked. My jokes were good. Yours are bad.
No, that was the same joke.
What?
It was the same joke. It's literally the same. Okay. Fuck my ass.
He's getting up there in years. You think he'll have like a little dish of Jair candy?
See, that's terrible. What do you mean?
Because old people have little candy dishes.
Yeah, in the goddamn Amazon rainforest.
I don't know. I haven't been there yet.
Fucking candy dishes all set up.
Maybe.
Throughout the forest. So Jair starts to see ways that people can use the forest resources without destroying it. Like, tapping rubber trees where we don't tap them completely out and, we can still move on to the next trees. Leave that one alone for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Mark it somehow, so that it has time to recoup. Then we can double back and, and still use that tree. Tap it to a certain, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to fucking demolish everything on our way
Let it bounce
through.
back.
Right. That was a good one. I'll give you that one. That was a good one. So he periodically encounters native, tribesmen and stuff, because obviously he's in the fucking rainforest. So I don't know if it's like face to face or just seeing him or whatever, but he doesn't see them. He starts to look at them and go, how are these people impeding the growth and wealth of Brazil? I just see people.
Seems like they're just picking berries. Like the fuck.
Right. I see people out here who are living. And by the way, he has an immense amount of respect for how they can live out there with nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So yeah, he sees people who have just been here since the fucking entire continent was wild and know how to survive and thrive in this environment that he knows exactly how fucking harsh it is at this point. And like I said, he reveres and respects and is completely impressed by that. So he starts to feel like maybe we're going about things incorrectly in this circumstance. So in his own words from an interview he did last month, he said, there are ways to collect Brazil nuts, rubber, copaiba, which is it's an oil that you get from certain trees. It's used for like turpentine and shit like that, certain lacquers and stuff.
Okay.
But they also use it like as an essential oil, which is weird to me because I can't think of any essential oil that would smell anything like lacquer that I'd be like, ooh, dab this on my wrists and behind my ears. I smell like a freshly lacquered table.
I can actually kind of get behind that.
Yeah.
It's the construction experience, just
Sure.
fresh lacquer.
But yeah, so he says there are many ways to collect Brazil nuts, rubber, copaiba, and other things so you can survive without having to destroy or deforest anything, either your own or anyone else's. The Amazon forest is very rich. Right. So this is, now in his 60s, but you kind of see where he starts to get this attitude where like, why the fuck are we doing it this way? You know what I mean? Like there are people in there. They're not beasts. There's no reason to fucking kill them. They're not coming to try and take your farm. They're just fucking living in the rainforest with nothing. And happily doing so. And have been here since before you, fucker. So by the time he's in his late 20s.
Are we suggesting there's never an instance where like a couple of arrows or blow darts came out of the fucking jungle and hit a couple of settlers or whatever?
I don't think initiated by I don't think that most of the Amazon tribes are not like divide and conquer type fucking people, man.
Yeah. They're more of like fucking just run away and hide.
Yeah, I mean, they've been living. You think about how long people have been in there, and like I was saying in one of the uncontacted episodes, the estimation is that before Europeans came over, there were hundreds of thousands of tribes and millions of people living in this fucking rainforest. And you got to believe they would periodically, at least some of them, come in contact with others. And there's not really a lot of evidence that it was a lot of like, oh, we got to go to war against them. It was just kind of like, hey, what's up?
Hey, you guys collect your nuts over there. I'll collect the nuts over here. You guys fish that part. I'll fish this part.
Fucking giant rainforest.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, like, oh shit, we got too close to these guys. Turn around, head back. You know? So by the time he's in his late 20s, the military regime in Brazil is overthrown. Brazil democratically votes a government into place, and they are writing a constitution that includes rights for indigenous populations, right? So we've talked about the scale of the Amazon. Obviously, they need to know exactly what the hell they're even getting into because there's just so much fucking wilderness out there.
There's not like a census of the population.
Exactly. So they need people who are familiar with the rainforest, and they end up hearing about a 28-year-old dude named Jair Candor, who has been working in the area since he was a kid, and he knows the forest, and he's a hard worker, and he's made friends with some of the indigenous, people from these tribes, and he doesn't just automatically attack and kill them. And, the government's like, well, let's fucking hire this guy. And like immediately this dude makes an impression.
Right.
Just as a sidebar, this dude is one of the most fucking incredible people possibly in the fucking world. The Kawahiva tribe is not the only tribe that he has discovered.
Oh, wow.
There were more that he found before them, and there have been more since then, which we'll get into in just a sec. But like just this dude, I mean, I'm not going to be able to even cover it all in this short episode. This guy is totally worth looking into and totally worth reading about. I don't know why nobody's written a fucking biography about him. I guess maybe because he's still alive. But he's just such a fucking impressive character as someone who has almost no education, like just grew up in this wilderness.
He's quite a bit older now, right? You said he's retired?
65, yeah.
He can still get into local government.
Oh, for sure.
He'd be a great Jair candidate.
That's a good one too. Let's see, you got to let it breathe a little bit before you jump in with another one.
I'm starting to fall into the pacing here.
So he gets hired by FUNAI, F-U-N-I-A-I. It's an acronym, translates basically to Brazil's National Indian Foundation, right? This is the government body responsible for everything having to do with native tribes. The laws, the land demarcation, all that shit, you name it, that's all FUNAI, right? And that's who he gets hired with. And like I said, Jair Candor, just fucking incredible in the forest. Like people who have been on expeditions with him have said that he'll just like stop and like stand there for a second. He's just like going through the woods and you're going in a direction and then he'll just stop and he'll like look around and then change direction and walk like 10 paces and find evidence of like a tribe. Like the forest is just speaking to him. And literally, I think I have the quote in here somewhere, but yeah, I've got it right here. So his deputy, Rodrigo Aires, explained it saying, quote, "It's a spiritual thing. Inside the forest, there's a mode of communication that we can't explain according to our worldview, and Jair can tap into that."
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, he'll just be walking and he'll be like, wait, we got to, he'll stop and he'll like, I don't know what he's doing, looking around, smelling around, hearing around. I don't know, but he'll be like, we got to go back this way. And he'll go back a little bit and then cut back into the trees. And then boom, there's some like, there's a, whatever the fuck.
Part of a hut.
Yeah. Part of a hut or some
smoking
some pots or something. Yeah. Just like something that's evidence like, oh, there was a tribe here. Right. So remember in Uncontacted Tribes Part 2 at the end when I was talking about the solo Amazonian native that was like the tribe of one and they don't know where he is? All right. He's the last remaining member of the Piripkura tribe, right? You want to guess who made first contact with them?
Hold on a second. Let's see.
You know a lot of indigenistas you have in your head?
Hold on. I got this.
You're stalling for time, man.
Was it Jair Candor?
It was. Correct.
Fucking
That's
nailed
correct.
it. I'm good at these. I'm good at these.
Like I said, you've got just a ton of Indigenistas you had to go through. Those are the guys who are hired by FUNAI to go.
Cool. I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, neither does anybody in Brazil. Well, actually, some people in Brazil.
I don't speak Brazilian either.
That's not a language.
Good.
How long have we been friends and you can't just say Portuguese?
I can say Portuguese.
Fucking asshole. God damn. You have no idea how much of my life I've had to deal with that.
Hey, it's
one of the most frustrating things.
I had a comment from a listener today. She said her favorite part was when you got mad at me for being a stupid asshole. So farming that.
Great. So I just get to be constantly frustrated here while you troll me.
She have 50 episodes. She's a new listener.
So in 1989, a year after he started working for FUNAI, he got hired at 28 in 1988, right? So a year after he started, he finds the Piripkura tribe. There were 3 of them, 2 men and a woman. It was an aunt, an uncle, and their nephew, right? So a brother, sister, and their nephew.
2 men, a woman. Was there a pizza place out there too?
Was that a name of a show? That sounds like the name of a show.
2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
Stupid.
And no Ryan Reynolds' old show.
Probably canceled immediately.
It was bad.
Terrible.
No, actually, they did like 4 seasons, 5 seasons.
Probably still terrible.
It was not great.
So there is a super cool documentary from 2017 prominently featuring Jair Candor and the 2 remaining members of the sister is in it too. But basically this documentary it's called Piripkura, Piripkura. Piripkura.
I can spell Piripkura.
Sure you can.
Piripkua.
Kura.
Fuck.
So this sort of centers around them having to do the, what would we call it, bi-yearly expedition to go make sure there's some evidence of them still in the area in order to refile all the shit with the government to keep the demarcation line active.
Routine biannual fun hike.
Sure. And so at this point, the sister, whose name I believe is Rita, so they never really, they allude to some sort of event, but they never really get into it. Apparently there was some big attack by like the illegal loggers, right? Over like a pretty large swath of area, and multiple tribes had to flee. And she was part of like this, just people just fleeing out of the jungle. And there were like other tribes nearby that she didn't even know were there. Like there's a part where she says like she marries a tribesman from another tribe from the area that also was part of like that big flight from the area. And she even says on part of it that she didn't even know that he was there, like that tribe was there.
Did they meet in this like this horrifying like all these tribes driven out of?
Yes.
How romantic.
I know, it's terrible.
You know what it reminds me of, actually? That part in Avatar where they attack the home tree.
Yeah. And everybody's that's kind of what I think about too.
And I know it's kind of like reductive, but that part of the movie is really fucked up.
Yeah, I feel like that was probably a similar fucking situation. So she is living when this documentary starts, she's living in sort of, dude, it's fucking sad. There's like government housing that's like on the edge of the rainforest, and a lot of these people live there, and they're like semi-modernized, but they're not, I mean, they're still on the edge of the rainforest. They're not like near a big city or anything like that. So I think all the housing and everything's provided for them, but they still have to kind of fend for themselves. They still don't have any way of making fucking money or anything like that. So I don't understand what that life is, but I do know that it's federally protected and policed, and and by the way, I think at that point, like all the illegal loggers and shit like that are like, good, they're out of the fucking rainforest. They got a house.
You can kind of think in terms of like, it's easy to think in terms of like, well, why don't they just fucking go back into the jungle if they're already on the edge of it there? But like, look at your options. You can either
murder.
You can either like stay in this like, hovelly little favela town and try and do what you can to survive, or go out into the jungle and just get fucking murdered by loggers and shit.
So she joins Jair Candor frequently to go into the woods to go find these guys. And he hasn't been part of the expedition to find them like the last couple times, so it's been a while since he's seen them. But he goes and like in this documentary, he's talking to her and blah, blah, blah. And they're getting close to the deadline where they have to find these guys. Like they're within months of the deadline and they have to find them and just know that everything's okay. In the documentary, they eventually find these guys. And it's so fucking wild. I know we talked about in, I think, part 1 of Uncontacted Tribes about seeing the photos of them and just this like tribal weird like feeling that you get of like these people living so primitively at the same time that we have iPhones in our pockets.
Right.
You know, watching these guys is it's difficult for me to even describe it. I would urge you to watch the documentary because 1, it's really good. It's won multiple awards. 2, seeing these guys, I mean, completely naked, you're going to see dicks. So bravo.
I'm in.
Yeah. But when they show up, you can just see, how do I describe it? You're watching them interact. And it's obvious that they don't understand any sort of social cues or anything like that. And you understand why they don't understand any social cues or anything like that. And then you start going, well, God, they almost act like someone that's like mentally challenged. But then you go, well, how would you even know that? Because every metric that we have to determine that is all based on whether someone
societal recognition.
Exactly. So it's like, how do you test an IQ on this person? He's never had any formal fucking education. He doesn't know anything that you would gauge intelligence based off of. But like, drop anybody who lives our sort of lifestyle in the woods next to him and go, okay, you go this way, you go this way. I guarantee you this person's fucking dead real quick and this guy's going to live for fucking decades.
Right.
So like, it's just, there's so much, man. And then watching them walk, that was the other thing that was like, it was like that, is it Da Vinci that did the drawings of like no, that couldn't have been Da Vinci. He was dead. The Evolution of Man.
Oh,
drawings.
Evolution of Man is
they're very Vitruvian Man.
Yeah, they are very Vitruvian Man.
In the way they were written.
It's not Da Vinci. Hold on, I'll
well, no, it couldn't have
keep
been.
going.
But but that Evolution of Man sketch, the way they, you know how all of them are like kind of in mid stride. Like once you get like bipedal, they're all like mid stride, so you can see them like walking.
Yeah,
they have a very, I don't know how to describe it other than just a very primitive walk.
The illustration of the Evolution of Man is called The March of Progress, originally titled The Road to Homo Sapiens. And it's an illustration that represents 25 million years of human evolution, created for the Early Man volume of the Life Nature Library, published in 1965 and drawn by the artist Rudolf Zallinger.
Okay. Obviously, these guys are unequivocally Homo sapien, right? But there's just something very primitive about the way they walk, and I was like, what? So they've got absolute dump truck asses, and they're real. They're short. They're very short. They're probably about 5 feet tall. This is when he finds the uncle and the nephew, right?
Right.
Pakui, and
he heard them through the jungle with the slap of their meaty cheeks,
or their dick slapping against the side of their fucking thighs. The uncle's name is Pakui, and the nephew's name is Tamandua, right? So he finds the two of them. Like I said, they're probably about 5 feet tall. They got big old butts. They're real haunchy in the the upper leg.
Yeah.
And the way they walk is strange. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, how would you walk if in your entire life you had never walked just a straight flat level surface?
Oh, that's really interesting. This is like we've discussed this theory. This is gonna sound kind of misogynistic, but this is my theory of how if you travel to like if you go to Florida and you're like checking out babes,
right?
There's usually kind of like a jogger-esque sort of like beach body stereotype all over. But if you go to like Colorado, like all the girls have big asses because they have to walk uphill all the time.
Okay.
It's just something I've noticed.
I don't know. That sounds like pseudoscience, but I'm sure you could.
Pseudoscience is definitely misogynistic.
I don't know. I don't know that there's been any tests to confirm the scientific value of this theory. But
Rudolf Zallinger, by the way, the guy who did the March to Homo Sapiens, fucking dope ass artist. Look at these dinosaurs.
That's cool.
That's cool shit.
We have a cooler guy that we're talking about though. So fuck Rudolph, red-nosed dick. But
well, they look like the Dinosaur World 2 dinosaurs.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I'm Jair Candor doing research over here.
On a different thing that's not even on the board. Rudolph's not up there.
Rudolph, whatever.
The
dinosaurs.
Rudolph the hard.
We have some
hard-drawn-
dinosaur shit up there somewhere, don't we?
hard-drawn- No, I don't think that's up there yet.
What?
I don't think that went on the thing yet. Dinosaur bones.
Whatever.
We'll put that. We'll do that soon. Okay. So yeah, it's just this fucking crazy. And so they find these guys in the woods. They bring them back to like a little camp area, and they're talking about how they look like they haven't eaten in a while. Oh, and here's the thing: the way they find them, it's like this weird serendipitous thing. They find their camp, and they see their torch. Their torch is out. Turns out that from like, oh my god, I want to say like 1996 to 2015. It's like 20 years, 20 something years. They lit this torch for these guys, and they keep the torch lit for 20 something years. And they've got some sort of like palm thing that they like.
They didn't have fire before that?
I'm sure they had to make it, but I mean, it's got to be difficult to make fire in a rainforest.
Right.
Everything's damp.
Yeah,
Constantly damp.
Mm-hmm.
So their torch went out. And so they were kind of freaking out. And so they ended up approaching them. They heard them. They ended up approaching them. But so they bring them back. And
what kind of torch was this? Was just like renewable like fuel torch, or
no? They have this palm thing that's kind of like this thick. It almost looks like if you were to like peel like a palm tree.
Okay.
Like if you were to peel like a layer of skin off of a palm tree trunk, and then it's rolled up real tight, and then that's what they keep the fire lit in, and I guess it slow burns.
Oh, so it's like a fire horn almost.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of pack it full of material to keep it burning, and it's like
I don't even know if they have to pack it full of material.
Like
I think it's just
portable fire?
real
Yeah.
dense.
Right.
And it slow burns, and then once it starts getting low, they get another one, and they just light it
Oh,
off
I
of
see.
that.
Okay, I
So
get
they
it. So
constantly-
it's multiple torches. It's
Yeah,
the same,
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same fire. I was
Yes.
thinking like, is this like an Olympic torch? Or they fucking
No. They have to. They have to renew the the source of
Right.
that's keeping it lit. But they have kept this one fire that was lit for 20 something years.
Oh shit! And it's conceivable with how short the lifespans are out there that fucking nobody knows how to make fire now because they've been using that fucking thing for so long.
Possibly.
Ooh.
But so they take him back. They make him some food. They end up going fishing with them and stuff like that. And the guys. So at first they only had one guy who could kind of communicate with them, and so it was a little dodgy. But you can tell these guys are very like don't want to be there, and so Jair Candor is trying to keep them there long enough to get somebody to that fucking remote ass outpost to give them a checkup, to give them a medical checkup, and just make sure they're healthy and everything's good. And before he, because he's got to note all this stuff to fill out super probably convoluted ass government forms to go, okay, there's two of them here, they're in good health, this, that, here's the medical checkup, let them go on their way and then send all that shit in for another 2 years before they have to do it again.
Right.
But yeah, you can tell these guys are just very, very anxious the whole time. And it's so strange, man. They're like little forest pixies. They're like forest children. It's crazy watching. Like my mind was blown, and I was kind of stoned while I was watching it. But I mean, I think even if I was dead sober, I would be watching this like mind blown, watching these guys just interact, because you don't really see that. You don't see a lot of that. Even if you grew up with National Geographic.
Yeah, I had a huge collection of that growing
Yeah,
up.
same. And you could see the photos, and that kind of gives you this like feeling of awe. But I mean, watching them walk and talk and move and interact, and seeing that sort of social awkwardness and that anxiety of not, like, dude, when the nurse comes to check them up, it's fucking crazy, like how scared they are. And like the uncle's like curled up in a ball and like doesn't want to look at her. And the nephew's kind of looking, but you can see he's a little anxious too. And like, it was just the craziest fucking shit, man, watching this documentary. Dude, so good.
Have you ever seen the movies Baraka or Samsara?
I don't think so.
They're very, very cool. They're like not documentary is the wrong way to say it. These are movies that have no words whatsoever. It's just images.
So is this Pirip Kura?
Okay, cool.
Very, very. It's like
just visual,
mostly silence.
which is great for this kind of content.
Did you see the photo I sent you of like that big panned out shot with the forest and the trees?
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, holy shit.
Baraka and Samsara, I can't remember the name of the director, but it's like they were both these huge film projects that are like world spanning. I think Baraka took like 5 years and Samsara took 7. A huge like IMAX film project that just fucking spanned the entire world, and it bounces from like primitive tribes to modern day like robot stuff and back and forth, and makes its own narrative. But those movies are doing shots of like primitive tribes and stuff, just the silence and the jungle noise and the huge scope of it, and just like just watching it without somebody being like, yes, and then you see the tribe. Yeah.
So this Piripkura documentary is very much like just large, like minutes and minutes and minutes of just visual. And then, there will be like, there's a couple parts where it's just Jair Candor talking. There's a couple parts where it's like him talking to the sister who, like I said, has sort of integrated. Now, I think since then, because I mentioned that it's just a tribe of one, since then, I believe the uncle has also come and integrated into society, but Tamandua, the nephew, didn't want to. So last I saw, don't quote me on this because maybe I don't know. Maybe everybody went back. Maybe he died. Maybe he came out. Well, who knows? But last I saw, he was out there by himself, last remaining member of the Piripkura tribe.
Jesus.
And by the way, Jair Candor's fucking like talking about them and talking about how like the whole thing with the logging company coming through and this big fucking just clearing everybody out has been going on for years. And Jair Candor is like, these guys... And you can see like the sense of awe. He's like, they're like ninja. The fact that they survived out here unharmed, nothing broken, nothing cut off, no bullets in anybody. Like he's like, it is the most impressive thing that with everything going out in this part of the jungle right now, everything going on in there, that these guys are still alive and healthy and thriving. And had that torch not gone out, we might not have even found them.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like I said, it was very serendipitous that they just happened to be doing an expedition. They had been doing expeditions constantly. So
that's crazy to think too, because like, just imagine that life. How many occasions of like loggers rolling through with equipment and guns and shit to them like just barely hiding behind a fucking tree. Like God. Frodo and the hobbits when the fucking race come through.
The ring race,
just like how many instances of just hiding quietly and watching this like certain death roll past. Sure.
Or watching some of the people from your tribe be fucking gunned down.
Yeah.
So as if finding the Piripkura tribe of 3 fucking people as soon as he started this job, and then finding the Kawahiva tribe 10 years later was not impressive enough. Jair Candor is also responsible for discovering the presence of a breakaway group of the Sintalahaga indigenous people. So there was like a group that broke off from the main group and was living isolated in the Amazon. He was the one to find them. He was also, in 2019, made contact with the Korubo tribe. Korubo.
Jesus, should have called him Jair Can Discovery.
Can discover some motherfucking indigenous ass natives, bruh. Yeah, dude, he's just fucking like super impressive. So, as rewarding as I'm sure all of this can be, Mr. Candor's life of doing all this shit. One, it's got to be, if we're talking about the negatives here, frustrating that you're constantly battling with the government.
Probably fucking heartbreaking, dude. Like
100%.
Imagine being. This is one of those stories of somebody who's like, like greatness is thrust upon you. Or this is even a real quiet greatness.
Yeah.
That is gotta be such an emotional
fucking burden. And I'm sure
fucking
for every
burden.
Victory, there's got to be 10 just absolutely heartbreaking occurrences.
Yeah, what just an intense emotional burden it must be to fucking be like, I'm the only person who seems to give a shit about these people.
Yeah, and his life has certainly not been fucking entirely rainbows and sausages. He only comes home about 8 times a year. In 1992, he was on an expedition. What?
Nothing. Sorry. You say he only comes home about 8 times a year. I don't even want to do this bit.
Jacking off in the rainforest?
No, I just pictured him walking into his house and his dog's just bones.
He's got a wife and kids.
Okay.
In 1992, he was on an expedition and they were out longer than they intended to be. They kind of, I don't know if they were looking for a tribe or what, but they were out there longer than they intended to be. And he missed his own fucking wedding day.
God damn.
And his fiance was like, nope, and refused to marry him.
Well, that's that. You know what? If I was engaged, right, and I had to fucking miss the wedding because I was saving the
in
Indigenous.
1992, he's already been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah,
you knew
fucking
me.
pretty
You knew what I was
dedicated to
doing.
this shit. And it's like, no, if you care more about the lives of these like endangered Indigenous people than our fancy performative fucking symbolic day,
Oh my God.
then I'm not doing it. Well, fuck you, lady.
Yeah, dodged a bullet on that one, Jair. For real.
Yeah, frankly,
So-
if the lady'd been like, "Hey, it's fine. We'll do it some other time. I'm glad that you worked." Like,
Right. No shit. Like, I'm sorry that happened. You had to be out later than you did. I guess we're not getting any of our deposits back, but we'll schedule this for another time, I guess. He
so,
did.
Yeah, there's a great moment there. If that was a movie, she's like, "Hey, I saved cake." Like that would have been good.
Yeah,
yeah. There's a great end cap to a documentary or movie where they're just fucking eating wedding cake at night, and, like looking at each other.
Yeah,
That's a good moment.
You could have been cool, Mrs. Almost Candor,
And then they would have
instead you had to be an
fucked.
asshole. So he does end up marrying a different woman, and they have two
Good.
sons. And yeah, right. And apparently she's cool with him only being around a few weeks a year.
Apparently, she's okay with him being a goddamn hero.
Right? How could you be upset about that?
Yeah, go
For
fuck
real.
yourself.
He's selfish.
I mean, I can understand not wanting to put yourself into that life, but if you expected to change him out of this essentially mystical character that he is at this point, like
That's on you, dude. You're an asshole.
Yeah. You fucking misread the entire
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. So in 2018, he was at a remote government base in the forest with his son, who was already like grown and I think was like in his 20s at that point. His son's visiting him, and he gets a call from an informant that a group of illegal loggers is planning to raid this base.
Oh shit.
So Jair knows that he's too isolated to call police or military or anything, and he doesn't want to abandon the base because these dudes will like 100% destroy it, right? I would imagine that that's probably an important, like these outposts, these remote outposts, like on the edge or just inside of the Amazon
Probably
rainforest.
very hard to
probably-
establish. Yeah.
Probably kind of tough. You don't want to lose that. So he decides that they are going to stay and defend this fucking base.
Yeah.
So he hands guns to his son and 6 of his coworkers that are there, and he gives his son the only bulletproof vest they've got. He instructs everyone to stand at the top of a slope in an arrowhead formation.
Mm-hmm.
That way, nobody's gonna accidentally shoot one of the guys on their own side. He said he saw it in a movie,
Right.
but so they find this slope, and he's like, "All right, everybody,
the
stand
high
in an
ground, and then
arrowhead."
yeah.
And be ready to shoot down the slope. So around 9 p.m., they hear trucks roll up and a bunch of dudes.
Just goes to show that my theory on films being instructional videos is 100% accurate.
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? If you're watching them the right way. So at 9 p.m., like I said, they hear trucks roll up and a bunch of dudes get out and cut the fucking lock on the front gate. There's a front gate on this base and it's locked. And they cut the lock, and allegedly they hear gunshots and they just fucking open fire. So one of the logging crew guys was shot and killed, and the rest of them flee. There were charges filed, and the leader of this gang ended up going to prison, but just him. They couldn't find evidence that the guys were armed, other than just Jair's group saying we heard gunshots, and they couldn't link them to any guns, any illegal weapons. So, in Brazil, that's not like here where you can just own a gun. You have to like have permits and stuff. You have to apply to have guns. So the leader went to prison, but now you got a bunch of other dudes that, you killed one of their guys, you sent their other guy to prison. Can't imagine they're terribly happy about that.
Right.
And they're not getting a new job.
So
So
like, fuck it, we'll just do something else.
So yeah, they're probably pretty pissed off at you. So he lives in pretty perpetual fear of these guys targeting him.
He's gonna get Diane Fossey.
I mean, he's had multiple colleagues killed in action. One of them by an arrow from a tribesman that Candor was part of the team tasked with watching that tribe.
Damn.
So one of his colleagues was on an expedition. Jair Candor happened to not be there, and they got too close or they did the wrong thing or whatever. One of the tribesmen fired an arrow, killed one of his colleagues.
Damn.
Remember, I was talking about the Korubo tribe that Korubo tribe that he made contact with.
Yeah.
The last one in 2019, I think. So the guy who initially asked him to be part of the expedition to contact them was another Indigenista, which, like I said, are the guys who work for FUNAI that work going in,
Right.
just keeping tabs on these native populations. So a guy named Bruno Pereira, and this guy is a younger guy. He's sort of like this new school of younger guys that are coming up, right? But he wanted somebody who was super experienced. So he requested Jair Candor for the initial contact, right? 2 years after that, Pereira was out in the jungle again, this time with a British journalist named Dom Phillips, when the leader of a local illegal mining and fishing operation ordered a hit on them.
Damn.
Yeah, they were both killed. 5 people so far have been arrested and charged, and I think they're all sitting in prison awaiting trial still. That was in 2022 when that happened. So, yeah, dude, fucking
Shit's still going down.
insane, man. So
It's interesting, like talking about stuff like this, that ranges, like we start out talking about, in the 60s, the shit's going down. And then it comes to modern day and it still hasn't really changed. It's still very similar. It really,
I think
we
technology,
live in a particularly odd time in the world where everyone's well aware that we need to change some shit and like nothing's changing.
I think technology makes it a little bit easier, but I mean, it's only as far as, the governments are willing to act. I know that a lot of these stories with the people who are killed or injured or had hits, I went through and I just looked to make sure that the government's actually doing something. And it seems like somebody's always charged. There's always an investigation. There's always something. But again, I don't know the answer because we've talked about this before. It's just such a huge area of absolute wilderness.
Really,
I mean, you walk in, and if you're going to do a straight fucking line, you're not coming out the other end for like 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
That's insane to think about.
The only real like ideal solution for this kind of shit is Star Trek nonsense. Like it's like mechanically separating off the jungle from the rest of the world with fucking laser fences and shit.
Seriously.
Which is a literal, it's a literal Star Trek plot. Like, there's some planet where, like, there are all these tribes that are in these uncontacted spaces that are covered by, like, energy domes that, the rest of the planet can't get into.
Which then turns
that are, like, nature
effectively
preserves.
into
zoos, in a
into
way.
Zoos, into like a curiosity.
Yeah, so, like,
which is also not, there's ethical ramifications.
There's an unusual morality attached to that whole kind of thing anyway. But, like, fucking, buddy, I don't know. I really don't know what the moral standpoint to take on uncontacted tribes is. On one hand, don't fuck with them. But on the other hand, is it cruel and unusual to not at least offer an insight to that there's more going on in the world? What do you send them, an iPad?
Do you think they don't know though? Do you think they don't know that there's other people
living?
I
think that the experience that they have is usually monstrous.
Yes.
It's like if you're living in the jungle.
Which goes back to the leave them alone. If you left them alone and you didn't just fucking kill them.
Maybe things would be different. But
maybe they'd be
their experience, the first people they've ever seen possibly, say in the 50s or 60s, are fucking shooting at them, or they've got gigantic mechanical monsters
fucking
with
1750s and 60s.
Loud smoking fucking hell blades that just clear out forests. Like it's like the discovery of the rest of the world is, there's the devil out there.
Yeah, they're fucking evil.
Whereas,
and they kill us.
What if there was a separate option where you could send, I don't know, benevolent care package with information about, I don't know,
or just leave them alone, and then they'd probably come to the edge of the forest and look out
hey,
there.
what are you guys doing?
See you driving in your '98 Toyota Corolla and be like, that monster with round black feet looks kind of cool. It goes fast, and that guy's inside of its mouth. I want to do that.
I mean, I would have to say that kind of the way we did. What's the tablet, like the gold record that we sent out into space, that Voyager Discovery?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
One of those? Voyager?
Producer Drew says Voyager.
I think we have a friend who's got like the Voyager information tattooed on her, actually. Which is cool. But maybe something like that. Like if you're gonna contact or talk to, like maybe just like fucking airdrop, like, hey, this is maybe like an iPad that's got all like renewable battery that fucking like shows like this is what people are like outside of the jungle.
Stand right on the tree line, holding up a boombox, playing "Don't You Forget About Me."
Yeah, you gotta wear those. You gotta wear the trench coat,
holding it up above your head.
No, "Don't You Forget About Me" is Breakfast Club. You're thinking Can't Hardly Wait.
No, I'm not. I'm thinking Breakfast Club.
They didn't do the boombox in Breakfast Club.
No.
No,
he's just standing.
Don't
he's
You Talk
away.
About Me is the Judd. That's right, Judd Nelson fucking the fist.
Don't you? Yeah, the fist in the air.
Which I do all the time. That's one of my favorite things to do, especially if I'm leaving like work, clock out, and then just.
By the way, just a quick note before we end this, because this is supposed to be a short episode and we're pushing it. Remember when I said in the first episode that he retired last December?
Yep.
I remember when I was like, he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's like just gonna not do anymore. Like he's dedicated his whole life to this. Doesn't seem like he's just gonna be like, okay, well, I'm done. He's now the coordinator of the Madeira Juruena Ethno-Environmental Protection Front.
Don't you mean the Jair Candor?
Yes, that's what I mean. Which is, I believe it's like a nonprofit NGO. I didn't have a ton of time to research it, but it's definitely dedicated to the protection of indigenous tribes in the Amazon. And Jair Candor is a fucking total badass. And when we do our Brazil trip, which we've been talking about, that is going to be something I try to finagle.
I really liked doing this the little addendum thing. We've been talking about doing episodes like this.
Yeah.
I want to do a few on some varying topics. It's hard to figure out a time to do that though that like fits directly after like a 2-part episode, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of just decided we had to pull the trigger. So
yeah,
we're going to do this one of these every month.
I think that's a good idea. So are we Jair Candon?
We are Jair Candon.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.